Hello and welcome to Miniature Adventures. I'm Big Lee, and this week I want to talk about painting smarter, not harder, by embracing the 3-foot rule. Now, I've been painting miniatures for over 40 years. That's long enough that sometimes I do feel like my hobby should be declared a full-time relationship. It all started quite humbly with a Railpather knight that I attacked with what can only be described as a small vat of black enamel paint. I thought I was being extremely fancy when I edged the armour with gold trim. In reality, the result looked a bit like a medieval warrior had been dunked in tar and then half-heartedly sprinkled with glitter. But you know what? I loved that little guy. I thought he was magnificent. Most importantly, that lumpy, shiny little knight absolutely hooked me on the magic of painting miniatures. Fast forward through 4 decades, literally probably tens of thousands of miniatures, and you might reasonably expect that I would have become one of those top tier competition painters. You know, the ones, those wizards who seem to be able to paint individual eyelash hairs on a 28mm figure and create battle worn cloaks that are so realistic you want to wrap yourself up in them. You might assume I'd be one of them by now, a grand master of blending and layering and freehand designs. Well, not so much. Not even close, really, and there's a good reason for that. I'm a wargamer who loves to paint, not a painter who occasionally wargames. It's a big difference, and it all comes down to the fact that I discovered and embraced and never looked back from what we fondly call the 3-foot rule. Now, for anyone not familiar with the concept, the 3-foot rule is a sort of informal sanity-saving guideline that many wargamers who paint their armies swear by. It says quite simply that the viewing distance for miniatures on a gaming table is about 3 feet. That's how far away you, your opponent and most everyone else will be standing when they're admiring or cursing your tiny troops. And from that distance, the razor thin highlights, the endless smooth blends, the 10 layers of glazing and wet blending that competition pieces demand, well, they're basically invisible. They disappear like the fine print on a bad contract. What actually matters from 3 feet away is the big stuff, the overall impression. The colour choices, the strong contrasts, the bold details and the vibe of the piece. You don't have to spend an hour blending the perfect gradient on a tunic when a simple sharp highlight will do the job just as well, if not better. You don't need to lovingly paint individual rivets on a shield if a quick metallic dry brush will catch the light and sparkle impressively from across the table. Now, the 3-foot rule for me has always been a bit about liberation. It's about freeing yourself from that idea that every model must be a painstaking work of art that could survive the scrutiny of a magnifying glass and a panel of very serious judges with even more serious beards. Instead, it encourages a focus on what actually matters for a wargamer, getting armies on the table that look fantastic as a group, that tell a story and make you feel excited to push them across the battlefield. Now, whether it's a sweeping recreation of Waterloo or a chaotic clash in the grim darkness of the far future, the 3-foot rule will save your sanity. So when you paint for the 3-foot rule, you shift your focus. You stop sweating the micro details that no one but you and your frustrated eyesight will ever see. Instead, you learn to make your miniatures pop from a distance. One of the biggest tricks here is playing with contrast, making the highs just a little bit higher, the lows a little bit lower, the colours perhaps a little bit more vibrant. A well-placed bright highlight can make a miniature sing from across the table, while a deep shadowy recess gives it depth and drama. Another thing that becomes much more important under the 3-foot rule is the overall colour scheme. Cohesion becomes your best friend. Armies that are tied together by a common palette or even just a repeated accent colour tend to look much sharper and more impressive at a glance than armies where every figure is treated like a separate work of art. Heraldry, banners, shields and other bold symbols take on new importance. They act like beacons on the battlefield, drawing the eye and creating points of interest that shout, "Look over here," even when you're several paces away. And let's not forget the bases. This is something that I have learned over the last few years. On the bases, in the world of competition, painting bases can become tiny dioramas full of tiny skulls, tiny broken swords, tiny tufts of grass growing on tiny realistic clumps. in the world of the 3-foot rule, bases are still important, but you can afford to be perhaps a little bit more pragmatic. A good looking base, some textured earth, a splash of grass or a bit of rubble can do more to lift a miniature than an hour spent perfecting individual teeth or the embroidery on a tabard. It frames the figure, sets the scene, and most importantly makes the whole unit or army feel like they belong together. And for that reason, I strongly believe you should have your formula for how you're going to dress the bases on your miniatures long before you start painting the army itself. Now, there are of course exceptions to every rule. Sometimes it's worth slowing down a bit and putting a little extra love into a model. Commanders, heroes, standard bearers, they are the figures that naturally draw attention. They're meant to stand out on the battlefield. Giving them a bit of extra polish, a few more highlights and maybe a little extra care on the details can really pay off. It makes them feel special and elevates the whole army by association. Now, the truth is there is no right or wrong way to approach painting. If you get your joy from spending 20 hours on a single miniature, layering colours until the transitions are so smooth they could be sold as luxury silk, then more power to you. That's amazing. But if you, like me, are more about seeing a completed army marching proudly across the table in all of its 3-foot optimised glory, then you're in good company too. It's about finding the balance that makes you happy and keeps you coming back to the painting desk for more. Now, one of the things that I most love about painting for the 3-foot rule is that it is sustainable. You know, painting armies, real armies with dozens or maybe hundreds of figures can be daunting. If you try to paint each one like a competition piece, the sheer weight of the workload can crush your soul. It can, trust me, I've seen it happen. There's a graveyard of half-finished, over-ambitious projects in every Wargamer's past. But when you embrace a more forgiving, perhaps more pragmatic style, painting becomes a joy again. You finish units, you finish armies, you get to actually play games with them rather than leaving them forever half-painted on the shelf of broken dreams. Plus, it has to be said, there's something deeply satisfying about stepping back after laying out your troops and seeing a sea of colour, flags waving, flags waving in the wind, uniforms shining, weapons glinting, all of it coming together in a glorious, cohesive whole. From 3 foot away, it's a work of art. Trust me. Maybe not gallery art, but the kind of art that wins battles, tells stories and makes memories. And honestly, isn't that what this hobby is all about? So now I have to ask, how would you describe your painting style? Are you the grand artist, the detail perfectionist, the one who makes angels weep with your brushwork? Or are you, like me, a solid, happy, workaday painter who proudly marches under the banner of the 3-foot rule? There's no wrong answer, and I'd love to hear your thoughts and your experiences, your painting victories, and yes, even your disasters in the comments below. Let's celebrate all the many ways we bring our tiny warriors to life, one brushstroke at a time. So a very brief hobby update to end this video today. I don't have much to report this week because I've been basically getting ready for a family holiday in a couple of days' time. It's amazing how much needs to be done even when it's just a UK holiday. My daughter, son-in-law and grandson are coming with us, and I'm really looking forward to just having some time with them to relax. I will be taking a new book away with me. Whether I get time to read it is another matter. I'm also not sure if we'll even be visiting any museums. We may do. If any that we do go to are away, I'll try and indulge. I always try and indulge my love of military history and museums when I'm away. So if we do get to go to any, I'll probably do a short video or a community post to tell you about it. But I think you'll probably forgive me if I just end up playing with my grandson and don't post anything while we're away. So a very brief work desk update. Again, I haven't really finished anything. I have started on some shock tokens where me and Ray have decided to use some little dials to represent shock. Rather than having loads of counters behind units, we can use these dials. I count up to 12. That should probably be sufficient for most units. So we're painting up a load of those, and we're texturing them and putting terrain on them. So some have got cartwheels and dead people, tree stumps, because we want these tokens to sort of blend in a little bit into the table. My Cossacks are still sitting on my desk. I've been doing some conversion work on them, adding some cloaks and scarves, and I found a technique for doing them that I think I'm going to have to do a longer video on and share at a later date. I've been trying out something completely different, and I really think it's a technique that has got legs. It's something that I'm going to be using again and again, and I think it's definitely worth me doing a video on it to share. So I'll be doing that at a later date. So the Cossacks are still sitting there waiting to be painted, and of course the Cossacks and the shock token dials are probably going to not get finished until I come back off holiday. So that's it for this week. Relatively short video. As I said, lots of preparations for the holiday. As always, I'd love to hear your thoughts and your comments. I really do enjoy reading them, and it really boosts the channel. So please leave your thoughts in the comments section below. And of course, if you like the video, please like, subscribe and share. Again, it boosts the channel, keeps us going, and grows our little community here. So until next week, look after yourself, keep gaming, and of course, keep rolling high.